Well, all right. I'm gonna assume and figure that we are live. There's always a little bit of a delay. We're gonna go right ahead, and we are here to talk about. And I know it sounds like clickbait. What are the most pressing things that employers are thinking about right now? Well, they're thinking about work from home, and they're thinking about, are we hybrid? They're thinking about, are we going to drag everybody back in? And we're thinking about AI. And so we put both of these together, not because we wanted you to click and come in and listen, although I'm glad you're here. We put these things together because I'm not really hearing people talk about the recursive feedback loop that I see between the issues of work from home and the issues of AI. There is a feedback loop. These things are working together for better and for worse. And I haven't heard people talking about it. So that's what we're here to talk about. I'm thrilled to have you with us, Jennifer. Jennifer Sheets is the CEO of, oh gosh, it's now I've lost it for a moment.
It's okay. Of everything. No, I'm just kidding.
It's gonna come back to me in just a moment. Jennifer is the CEO of Master Staff, if I remember that correctly. And I believe it's just one word, Master Staff. And so she's involved in bringing you the talent that you are so desperately seeking. Now, in this moment where AI is coming in and starting to amplify our effectiveness as workers, we're also thinking about who is it going to replace and when. Before we get there, we need talent. And Jennifer is here to help us with that. And also, we were just talking before we went live about your presidency of CEO Life, the Nashville chapter. So, Jennifer, tell us a little bit more. Introduce us a little bit more thoroughly to yourself, and we'll get going on this one.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited when you asked because this is my wheelhouse. And I started Master Staff 25 years ago, actually January 1 of 2000. And in that time, put over 40,000 people to work across the United States and Canada in about every industry you could think of, top to bottom, from blue collar, white collar, everything. And I always tell everybody I've won and lost a few times in that time frame. And I'm now president of CEO Life Nashville chapter, which is where we're 35 plus chapters in the United States of CEOs that come together to think like-minded and build new things and new opportunities, and to kind of sideswipe the AI and sideswipe like all the rhetoric that's going on, so we can actually have some real conversations that maybe you wouldn't have in the boardroom. So that's Excellent. My background.
Well, I'm excited to be having this conversation with you. You know, you're on the one side. We've definitely got some overlapping thinking. If you, listener, aren't familiar with me, I'm Aaron Schmuckler. I'm the CEO of the Yes Works, and the work that we do is we're here to help leaders and their teams come together, work more effectively, communicate and collaborate more effectively. You know, there's all of this brain wiring that we have, and most of what we learned coming up into leadership, and most of what we learned about coming up into the workplace and becoming effective communicators and collaborators, at least a lot of it, goes against the grain of our brain wiring. And so we help teams realign so that they can align and be inspired to do the best work of their lives. I also lead a couple of CEO and business owners peer groups here in the Pacific Northwest. And so I am talking to people about work from home and the effect that that's having on their business. A little bit now starting to talk about AI and the effect that that's having on their business. So this is the stuff that Jennifer and I are thinking about and talking about with our clients all the time. We're here to talk with you about it today. And if you're looking for a lot of really concrete, here's what you need to do answers, maybe you should log off now. Because anybody who's going to tell you that they have all the answers, I think is trying to sell you something.
Without a doubt.
So
especially the things that you see all the time where it says, if you do your resume like this, it'll meet all the applicant tracking system stuff. If you log onto this as a digital marketing, you'll get all these new people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the folks that are with us now, Jennifer, are leaders, and they're thinking about work from home. They're thinking about the current status that they have, whether they have decided to bring everybody back, whether they know we are now and forever going to be remote, whether they're trying to design or trying to tweak their hybrid environment, and AI. What are the when I brought this possibility of this conversation up to you, what are some of the dynamics between work from home and AI, and what's out there that came up for you? What are you thinking about coming into this conversation?
Well, instantly, I would tell you that the amount of positions that are available now, remote work from home, have gone down 6.8% since last year. And that's important to note because I always say you make your bed, you sleep in it kind of deal. And this is to your point, Aaron, is that there's always a reaction to something, right? So every time you think you might be taking one step forward, there's always something else to consider with it. And let me give you an example of that. Like currently, right now, like the way that some of the companies have it set up is that they're clocking in the time when you're working from home on your laptop. But people from home have figured out how to do mouse jigglers, which means it makes it look like and seem like they're online, but they're not really doing all the work that they need to be doing. And vice versa. You have other companies that said, I will never go back to bringing people in because I get everything that I need out of them and then some. And I really think, to our point, to really dive into this conversation, what is right for a company depends on what you do, because obviously we can't make prescription drugs, toilet paper, and food in our living room, right? So if we're, there's certain jobs and certain careers and industries that will never be able to work from home, clinical, like certain kind of medical positions, things like that. So I think you have to just kind of take a step back and see where that's going to weave in as you move forward.
Well, your conversation about mouse jigglers and the illusion that people are creating that they're at work brings me back, way back in time, 5 years ago, when COVID was happening. I got a flood of inquiries, leaders asking me, how do I know if people are putting in their 40 hours? And my response was always the same. It's essentially, I love you. Wrong question. And the mouse jigglers are a solution to, and they're kind of a reinforcement of the idea that you're asking the wrong question. You don't want to be in an arms race with your people where they're trying to get out of work and you're trying to get them to be doing
1,000%.
When we were all in the same place, kind of the management by walking around, just seeing our people at their desks, it was a good enough way of managing. You could basically assume that if they're at their desks, they're probably at least doing reasonably valuable work most of the time. And what's emerged, and what I think is happening now and has been happening since COVID began, is that management that I call good enough management just isn't good enough anymore. Because what we've always needed, I've never paid you. As somebody on my team, I've never paid you for your 40 hours. I've paid you for the product that I imagined those 40 hours would give me. And so if we're managing for 40 hours, we're managing the wrong thing. It's the outputs that we need.
Aaron, I love that you said this because it's 1,000% true. I tell everybody all the time, like I trying to punch the clock. And this is where maybe our generation's changed. I mean, I'm old, I'm Gen X, where we've changed a little bit, but I've watched my parents, they hated punching a clock in and out. Everything was how many days off, that, all these things. And I understand why we have policies in place, because unfortunately there are people that do take advantage of things. But at the end of the day, when your leaders are strong, okay, when their leaders are strong, they are going to know who the amazing workers are, and they're not the workers. They're the talent they surround themselves with, and they're going to produce. And to that point, Aaron, if you don't mind me telling us a super quick story, but this is, I want you to think about this. I had waited to talk to the Bridgestone CEO of North America at an event one time, and it was in downtown Nashville. And they only, at the time, were only keeping CEOs 3 years. So when they went in, they knew it was only 3 years, so they could always keep fresh perspective going on. And he was speaking, and I wanted to talk to him because I had questions about things I was questioning in my own business, and even being in this world of placing people all these years. I waited. I was the last one in line. And everyone's trying to give him a card to sell him something. And I said I wanted 30 minutes of his time. Took me 2 months to get that 30 minutes, 2 months. I got on his calendar. I went up there. He says, you got 30 minutes. So my first question was asking about my business and stuff. But the second thing was talking about management, leadership, and it had something to do with keeping control of everybody, watching what they're doing, and I felt like I had been taken advantage of many times. This is what he said. Now, don't everybody freak out because you got to hear the whole thing. And it's not very long, but I want to tell you what he said. He said, if my leadership, my management team, my director, whether it's running divisions or like North America, if they go on vacation and I know that they're gone, they do not have a job when they come back. And I was like, what does he mean by that? He goes, now wait a minute. But if they go on vacation and I didn't know they were gone when they come back, I'm promoting them. He goes, and here's why, because they knew how to run their team to run absolutely amazing without them there. That means they can handle that. They can handle something else. And I'm promoting them to do even more. He goes, we have to stop looking at who we're hiring and keeping them below us and hiring people smarter than us to execute what we're put in charge of so that we can, help our companies grow exponentially. So I have to share that because I thought that was just pivotal thing he told me.
Yeah, well, you're gonna get me off on a tangent, and I'll go off on the tangent briefly, and then I'll bring us back to the topic of the day. A lot of the times I've got leaders talking to me about, I don't want to promote somebody up into a place where they don't have the capacity. And of course, there's wisdom to that, right? We all have heard of the Peter principle, where you're promoted to the lowest level of your incompetence. On the one hand, on the other hand, one of the greatest causes of burnout, contrary to the popular opinion that burnout comes from having too much work, burnout can also come from being worked only at or especially below our capacity. And all of us want to be working in a job that just feels that little bit out of reach. And so I'll get off that tangent.
I love that you said it, though. It's great.
And I'll go into one of my favorite places to go, because it's one of the things that I think is so important, no matter what we're doing, is to think about brain wiring for a minute. And when it comes to work from home, and also AI, it really matters how our brains are wired. And I'm going to sound like I am anti-work from home, and I am not anti-work from home. I am home, and I'm thrilled to be working from here today. Although I'm also glad that I'm not stuck here. I was working away from home earlier today. One of the things about brain wiring that I think is going on is really similar to what's happening with us with sugar. Our brains were designed for a world in which calories are precious and few and far between. And so our tongues and our brains are wired to reward our eating sugar. We love things that are sweet. It is hard for me not to eat sweets. I could eat them all day, and I don't actually end up feeling bad. I feel just fine after I gorge on sweets, because my brain is wired to reward that behavior, even though, I weigh a lot more than I did when I was in high school. It's not good for us. I think work from home has got some of those same challenges, that our brains are also wired to be stingy and preserve calories. It's easy to stay home. When we think about the commute, the work that it takes to get to work, that sounds odious.
I know a lot of people think that.
and folks like Malcolm Gladwell have talked about the great cost to us as social creatures of being stuck at home, of working from home. Very often we choose the things that are not necessarily that healthy for us. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. I think too much of everything, as they say, it's too much of a good thing. Or sometimes, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is people struggling talking to people anymore. And I noticed it with my own children. I mean, they're so like wrapped up in their electronics. And my daughter does a competitive cheer sport, and like we would take the team to a dinner, and it's kind of quiet because they're messaging each other. They're sitting next to each other and they're messaging each other. This is the same thing that I'm seeing play out over and over again, in what you call like the real world. And this is the challenge, is because they don't know how to network anymore. And here's the thing, anybody out there that's trying to get a job right now, and you think that going in and applying, and you're so frustrated 100, 200 times you've put your resume out there, that's a whole nother show for Aaron and I to talk about. There is a reason you're feeling like that. Stop doing that. Start like actually talking to people again, going in on like platforms like this where Aaron and I we're discussing issues, get to know people, reach out, comment on their things, get to know, like network, like actually do like a human to human thing. There's great things. And I always tell everybody, AI and technology is great when it's integrated responsibly. That's the key. It's not about being against it. It's integrating it to technology responsibly. And when you become subservient to it, which is what happens a lot when we're at home or on our personal devices, and you let it make the decisions for you, that's when we have real trouble. And that's what I see happening, is that there's just not a way for people to communicate the way that they used to. And then sometimes that results in them not getting a promotion that they want, not resulting in making the career jump that they want to make, or being received the way that they should. Have you guys ever sent an email that you shouldn't have sent, or it was lost in translation of what you said? You didn't mean it. Okay.
And that, I think, is actually a place where AI is. I've seen people using AI very, very wisely, of saying, hey, I'm about to send this email.
Yes, exactly.
Let me get some input on it. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, right? That maybe being at home slows us down a little bit. That's fantastic, right? And then where we might not have felt comfortable showing a colleague this email before we send it, because we kind of can feel that this maybe isn't the wisest thing. And yet, it's so tempting. Like, I know I'm going to get a dopamine to show AI, which has no judgment, right? It does not judge us,
right?
For better and for worse, by the way.
That's true,
right? It does not judge us. We are not worried about the embarrassment. So we show it the email, and it says, I don't know that you're coming across the way that you want to come across. So it's got that really excellent check on our maybe baser impulses.
Our knee-jerk reactions is what I say, Aaron. Our knee-jerk reactions.
And so it can be used to kind of temper those knee-jerk reactions and our addiction to dopamine on the one hand. And then on the other hand, it can become a replacement for that dopamine. Here I go back into the brain science, where connections with humans supply another neurochemical that we really need, serotonin. And so if we're getting all of our feel-good chemicals through dopamine, then our human connection muscles are atrophying. We're not using that serotonin reinforcement, the love and companionship and association chemicals. And so there's a way that, once again, the work from home is in both a virtuous cycle on the one hand, and then also on a potentially destructive cycle on the other.
I think like us having this conversation is so important. And I'm so thankful for everyone that's jumping in and listening to us today, because this is going to be the future, right? Like, AI is here to stay. And it goes back to what I was saying about, using it responsibly and understanding it's not a human being, that it's a tool to be used. And then when you couple that with work from home and how people have felt about it, that is a triggering subject. I saw that there were so many people jumping on board against companies saying, why are you bringing me back into the office? Now I got to pay for daycare. Now I got to drive in or whatever. And then you have the companies on the other hand going, we aren't seeing productivity. That certain ones definitely are not seeing productivity we had. And we're the ones that have to price this stuff and compete against everybody in the world. And you're not going to have a job if I have to, if we're not getting productivity out of it. Here's the scary part on both sides of it, honestly, is that the people that are paying you. So, I mean, at the end of the day, unless you start something on your own, the people that are paying you have to make a profit, right? Or they can't pay you, right? So what's going to happen is if if you are working from home, and if you are thinking of it like transactionally, as opposed to, as like Aaron brought up earlier, as doing the best at our job that we possibly can, and being productive for that and helping the company out and exceeding expectations. But if you're doing it transactionally, they're going to transaction you right out of that job, and they're going to put an AI right in your spot because they don't need you. You need to make yourself needed. If you're working for a company, you need to show them why you are better than that and why they should have you at the helm. And if you're in leadership, how you make a decision of if they're leaving it up to you, maybe they leave it up to you of who should be remote and hybrid. Think about that. Maybe it's different for different departments, and don't apologize for it. I don't care if you're a private company and everything, you don't have to do it like everybody else does. And every company is different. The one thing you tell everybody when you're in a company is you're better than your competitor because you do it different. Then why do we try to cookie cutter the people that are working with us? It's ridiculous. So, change it up, make a change. Make a change. Don't keep it that way. Maybe certain people have to work in the lab, in the office, but maybe some people don't. Maybe some people should be there half the time. Maybe some others shouldn't. Decide what fits for you and stick with it.
And one of the places that, speaking of cookie cutter, right? One of the places that companies get into trouble, and this is true historically all the way. I mean, we can think about Kodak, for example, is that we become echo chambers, and everybody's drunk the Kool-Aid. We've been doing it this way for 30 years. So this is how we've always done it, right? Yeah. Somebody said those are the most dangerous words in the English language.
Yes, it is.
And so once again, working from home can make it much harder to challenge the status quo for a lot of reasons. One is we don't have that kind of relationship. We don't have that kind of relational relationship with the people that we work with. We don't have that kind of relational relationship with our boss. It can be really hard to read people, much harder to read people on Zoom than it is to read people in the room. And so it can feel much more dangerous to challenge the status quo. And so AI here, once again, I think is a double-edged sword in these environments where AI can both reward your individualistic thinking. If you run your individualistic thinking by AI and say, hey, I'm having thoughts about challenging the status quo, and it may reward those. On the other hand, LLMs are essentially the average, right? I do not let AI. I do not let AI write for me because it dispenses average pablum, right? It's kind of it takes everything that's out there, creates something fairly bland, if very eloquently written, and spits it back out. So I use AI instead as a critic. And one of the things that people talk about is how much time they get back using AI. I actually find that AI makes me much slower because I don't let it write it, right? It writes things in an instant.
I'm the same way.
It makes me slower because I write something that I think is publication ready. It's like, okay, I'm ready to put this out on LinkedIn, or I'm ready to send out this newsletter. I'm ready to publish this blog draft. I give it to AI. I say, critique, do not edit this. And its critique is excellent. And so what I thought was publishing ready, I now have to go back and revise, and it slows me down and makes me better. So one of the, I promised that we wouldn't have any answers, more questions. One thing that I think is valuable is to think about and talk with your team about and encourage your team to, and maybe even require that your team demonstrate to you that it is using AI not only to streamline things, because sometimes we can get very efficient at doing the wrong thing,
right,
but to critique and to refine and to poke holes in what people are doing.
I think that is an excellent point to make, Aaron, and using it in that sense, because my soapbox of LLM, and I equate it to my son. My son So my son's 19 and he's a freshman at Ohio State. Everyone hold what they want to say, about it. He's also a 3-time cancer survivor. He got leukemia when he was 3.5, and he's had cancer two more times and had a bone marrow transplant. And he's wicked smart. And like I had to stop helping him with his math when he was in 7th grade. And the reason why I'm saying this is he's like very techie. He's doing aerospace engineering, so he's very tech. And he said to me the simplest thing about AI. And it was a couple of years ago, because I was kind of griping as it was coming in. I was getting very concerned about how people were being subservient to it. Like I was saying earlier, and he's like, Mom, it's X's and ones and zeros. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's just ones and zeros. It's just what someone coded it to be, to say, and then say, if you hit it so many times, then give this answer and this answer. And the thing we're all forgetting is it doesn't pull information out of thin air. It literally only takes from what's put into it from a computer, what it can get off the internet, what it can get off everything. And so, like, I love your point about having it critique and not rewrite, because it's only going to pull out what's been put into it. And we have to stop thinking it's doing this magical thing. And he even was telling me about machine self-learning. He's like, Mom, it's not like that. He said, it's when it's seeing patterns that we program to see repetitive patterns and then we rename what those patterns are. He goes, it just does it at a speed that's, very difficult for us to comprehend at the moment. But, I love that you said to critique. I think it's great advice for a company. If you're going to integrate or check on the AI portion that your employees are using, make them tell you why they're using it. That's another thing, right, Aaron? Like, why are you using it? Why do you think this is good for your job? Yeah. What does this help us? Does it hurt us? Should we use it here but not here? Make them think. I mean, that you hired them for a reason. I mean, they're talented people. You're keeping them there for a reason. Have them contribute in a way that they actually feel like now their opinion's really being valued. You might be surprised at the kind of retention you have at that point.
So if you're watching right now, you may have questions that you'd like for Jennifer and me to wrestle with. If you put questions in the chat, most of the time they come through and we see them, and I'd be happy to respond, though please know that there is something of a delay. If you are thinking about the performance of your team, if you think, these folks are capable of more than we're getting, we as a team are capable of more than we're getting. If we could only communicate and collaborate more effectively, that might be a good reason to reach out to me. I'm Aaron Schmuckler. I'm the only one on LinkedIn. We're going to come back to the conversation in a moment. Jennifer, why might people want to reach out to you?
Same thing. If you want us to talk about some strategy, you want to talk about, should we be doing this? Should we not be doing this? Do we have the right amount of people to do it? Should we do less? Should we hybrid it? Or should we change job titles? And maybe this should pay 10 times more and this should be something AI does and we don't need someone with, or maybe we should retrain this whole area and put it into something else. I mean, that's what I'm here for, strategy.
Yeah. One of the things that I will say to you, dear listener, is that it's really easy to think what needs to happen to solve a particular problem. And I know I have gotten into lots of trouble going with what my first impulse was. And I think, for example, the problem that emerged is a problem that my mind created, right? My current knowledge is what got me into this problem, whether it's a problem with my team or a problem with my family or a problem with my health, right? My current knowledge is what got me here. And I have a client who reached out to me a number of months ago. He said, you're one of 3 companies, one of 3 outfits that we're talking to, because we want to bring everybody back to the office. And we'd like your help doing that with as little pain as possible. How do we bring everybody back and not incite a revolution? And what I understand the other 2 folks said was, sure, we can absolutely help you do that. And the reason that I won the business and the Yes Works was the ones that helped them was that I said, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
Maybe let's figure out why you're having the challenges with things like discretionary effort and accountability and teamwork that you are having, rather than simply assuming, oh, well, we didn't have this trouble before we sent everybody home during COVID, right? What else has changed? Well, we're twice as big.
Right.
We now have professional leadership instead of just being owner led. Right. A number of things have changed. Being twice as big and no longer being owner led, those are major changes. So is sending everybody home to
That's
work
right.
from home. And to think that just that one is at cause for the challenges that you're having. You talked earlier, Jennifer, about knee jerk, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as you're wrestling with what have been the effects on us of work from home, do we want to continue with work from home? What does hybrid look like? How are we going to integrate AI? Make sure
Responsibly.
you understand as well as you can what the problem is really and what's contributing to that problem before you make the decision. The answers to how do we deal with work from home and how do we deal with AI and how do we deal with the fact that they are in this recursive feedback loop for better and for worse. Understand the problem before you think you know the solution. What are your thoughts, Jennifer?
I completely agree. You have to dissect every bit of it. It's not one thing. It's easy for us to pigeonhole something as the root cause, right? We always want a reason for something, and we always want to be simply one reason, but it's more complicated than that, you know. And I did see someone had asked us a question about how to make work with real interactions more interesting than asking AI. You know, that is a very, very that's a very interesting question in and of itself, because that's the challenge is people can ask AI something very, very quickly and get a response from it. If that's what where you were headed with that, Gail. If not, please feel free to
Yeah.
add more to it. And then how people may take a minute to react to you or what they say. And I just think that we have to come down to actually learning how to have a conversation again and setting an expectation ahead. If I'm leading a team and I'm working with coworkers, if that's the situation, you know, I need to tell what what I'm expecting from them, you know. And if I want to run my business without having to talk to anybody, and it's easier to have AI run it, then I have to tell why that is. There has to be a benefit on either side that makes sense for both the employee, the employer, and all the way around. And I think it's just, it may sound crazy, Gail, like I'm not answering the question, but I really think it's kind of a case by case basis. You usually know your culture, you usually know the people that are there, but I don't think going all one way and all the other is the answer either, because we're getting so much literally lost in translation. But I think take control of, like, you know, what your group is, and then also decide, is this a tool I need to use that will make us more efficient? Or is this something down the road that could cause a really big problem? And I think you have to just kind of evaluate it little by little.
Well, I do think the answer to do we need to use AI? I told you we wouldn't have answers. Here's one.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Just like you needed to get online when the internet came out
Right.
in the late 90s and early 2000s, you absolutely do need to be using AI. And I love, Gail, that you've said more interesting, because I find
Yes.
I have multiple conversations every day with AI. I find them very, very interesting, more interesting than some of my conversations with other humans. And so I think it's a really insightful question. And one of the things that I think is really valuable about humans and will remain unique about humans, at least for a while, is how incredibly idiosyncratic we are. And so asking people, for example, to give me the answer that only you can give me, right? It's like, what can only you tell me about this? One of the things that I often ask all of the employees or in a team that we're working with, maybe all the employees in a company that we're working with, what do you know? What do you understand about the health of this business that you wish everybody else understood? Because everybody goes home and talks to their
Yeah.
wife or
Yeah.
talks to their kids or talks to their friends at the bar or,
I was just gonna
around
say,
dinner.
they talk to their pitcher of beer is what they talk
Yeah.
to.
About, man, if my boss just would only understand this.
Mhm.
And so looking for not just not asking people what's the best way to solve this problem, but how would you solve this problem? How would you solve this in a way that nobody else would solve it? What are your worst ideas about this these are the ways, I just got back last week from a trip to Louisville, Kentucky, where I was talking with a whole bunch of CEOs about how to cultivate an innovation and problem solving culture. And one of the things that is often a key takeaway after that workshop for them is that we have to play with problems if we want to have creative, out of the box solutions. The part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, and Gail, I know that you are a psychologist, so please correct me if I'm wrong, right? The prefrontal cortex that works on problems is the same part of the brain that is the editor that says, no, that won't work, right? This is not creative. This is good for, not for divergent thinking, but for convergent thinking. And I think we humans still have the edge on divergent thinking as long as we can deliberately foster divergent thinking. Divergent thinking can be harder to do remotely because we don't have unique inputs coming in that spark us into other directions. And it can be easier because some of the best ways to brainstorm is to say to people, go away, come back with your best ideas, and then we'll spark off each other. So I don't know if I've answered your question directly or not, Gail. I think I have. I think I've.
Gail, I love the question, and to kind of to your point too, Aaron, and it's just there. Think about this way: is that Captain Sullenberger, when he landed the plane on the Hudson River, they gave that scenario to 17 supercomputers. Only one landed the plane, but it killed half the people. Okay, so what that man did in that amount of time that he thought like that, even supercomputers couldn't do. So I think like the reality check is for all of us is we have to start remembering where our place is and what we created. And I think that, like I said, it's one of my things I speak about. I have a radio show and a podcast that I talk about all the time. It's like integrating AI responsibly. But I could totally understand why Gail would ask that question. How do you make it more interesting? Because, you're always bouncing ideas off each other.
Sometimes people talk about energy generated in meetings due to the spontaneous building on each other's ideas, right? Serotonin and dopamine. So 100%. And I find that happens for me particularly the dopamine, when I'm talking to AI, particularly if I'm doing it verbally rather than in typing. And so this actually brings me, Gail, I'm glad you brought me back to this, because I was thinking a little while ago about the importance of, if you are going to bring people back to the office, and I don't just mean permanently or every day, I mean even for a day. If you're going to bring people back to the office, make sure that you really deliberately and definitively use the fact that they are there, because there is nothing that is going to alienate people faster than making them go through the hassle of that commute.
Yes.
And then they're just sitting in their cubicle by themselves doing work that they could do more effectively and more efficiently.
I love you saying this, Aaron, because it's like, remember the thing where they said you have to have a meeting to have a meeting about a meeting? Like, that was what used to just drive everybody crazy, right?
Right.
And Gail, I'm so thankful for you asking this and talking with us about this stuff. But yeah, like I was with you 1,000%. If you're going to bring people back, you have got to have a reason of why you felt like this was needed, and you need to map it out. And that's where strong leaders come in, and this is the other thing too. And we hadn't really touched base on this. I don't know, Aaron, you can jump in and say anything about this that you'd like as well. But it also flushed out when COVID hit, and then to now and doing this remote thing, it flushed out bad leaders. Because at the end of the day, you can lead in person or remotely, but if you're not good at what you do, it's really going to be transparent when you go remotely, and people will respond and they're going to feel when you're not in their face all the time, they're going to be more direct and honest with you too. Yeah. And they're going to tell you what they think.
What I think it did is it stretched out that bell curve, right? It's not that the bad leaders got worse. It's just that the distance between the results that the bad leaders are able to get got even further from the results that the good leaders were able to get, right? It just stretched out that bell curve and made it a little flatter. There's at least one other thought that or avenue that I wanted to pursue with you, Jennifer, which is that, I think there's a real value, and part of the play is what reminded me of this, talking about playing with the problem. I think one valuable definition of intuition is that it's what your unconscious provides when the conscious mind is looking into the dark and thinks that it can't see anything. And I say thinks that it can't see anything because I think we're faintly aware of things that we can't see in the dark. We're hearing things that we may not be aware that we're hearing. We're noticing behaviors that we may not be aware that we're noticing. And so our unconscious mind is taking all the data that we've gathered and providing pictures, subtle insights into whatever challenge or problem we may be seeing. And one of the dangers one of the excellent resources that AI provides is it provides answers, right? And it's provided great answers for me. I want to think about how to outline this, and it gives me a fantastic outline. It is really, really excellent because it taps into our collective knowledge of how to solve problems that people have solved before.
Right.
In a way that we've never been able to do before. We can tap into the fact that there's almost nothing new under the sun, and people have come up with excellent solutions to almost all the problems that we may be facing, on the one hand. And then on the other hand, if I get that light and I'm never looking into the dark, my conscious mind never thinks it's looking into the dark because I'm always just going to, oh, I bet AI can help me with this. Then the unique insights that intuition can provide will never come to light because our conscious mind will never experience the frustration of looking into the dark.
I don't know if y'all remember that there was the screenwriters. It was the writers, I guess, what do you want to call it, strike that they had in Hollywood. And with me having a radio show and I'm in Nashville, this was a really hot topic because it ended up they started taking a page from the songwriters that Nashville has and fosters, because what it was about was like Netflix and all of them wanted to use ChatGPT AI, Jasper.ai was the big one, to write scripts. So what they thought they could do is get rid of all these writers. So where maybe a show might take 20 or 30 writers on it at different parts of it, depending on the longevity of the show. And they wanted to pare it down to maybe they had an actual plot, it wrote everything, and they just gave it to one writer or maybe two to kind of tweak it and then put it out there. And the reason why people went crazy about it, multiple reasons. One, it was about to destroy an industry. Two, it was still only coming up with scenarios as good as what the computer programmer gave it to do. So to your point, Aaron, like all the extra creative stuff that someone in that space, you even brought it up earlier about how what's the one thing when we were talking about something completely different, what's the one thing you know that no one else knows about your company? I mean, these are these intangibles, the intuit, all those things that exist in the brain, like me pointing about Captain Sullenberger land in the plane. This all this whole conversation points back to this, It's stuff that is not put into that process. And if we ignore that and we don't bring that into the and thank goodness they won that, because I was for them being able to be creative and not let it just be subservient again to the technology. We have to have that actual responsibly integration. And I know I've said that a couple of times on your show, Aaron, but that's it, to be responsible at what we're doing, because you're right. That is the danger of it, is that anything we do, why do you think any of the habits that we've had over the years or people's physical attributes have changed to the environment that they're in? It actually adapts to that environment. And that's a really scary thing. So if you want to talk about machines taking over things, let them do all your thinking for you. And then you won't even be smart enough to know what it's even doing. So, I mean, we have to have some balance.
Well, and it's very interesting that you come back to I forget his name, Sullivan, maybe the pilot who landed the plane in the river.
Yeah.
Right. That's an intuitive, almost instantaneous intuitive solution to a very immediate problem. And I'm not enough of a brain scientist. In fact, I'm not a brain scientist at all. I'm not enough of a brain scientist to know for sure. But I would bet that he was able to do that not only because he had tremendous knowledge, which if we continually only outsource solutions to AI, we don't build that knowledge to have that intuitive solution.
Great
But
point, Aaron.
also, he's probably exercised his intuition a lot as well. And so he's got this strength of knowledge and understanding, as well as a strength of intuitive response that he's come to strengthen and trust. And I think about anytime I'm talking about intuition, I used to be a theater director. I don't know if we've ever talked about that before, Jennifer.
I love it.
And I remember, I directed this show called the Trestle at Pope Lick Creek. Takes place in the Depression, almost all under a railroad trestle. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to be directing this show in a couple of days, or a week, or whatever it was. In a short while, I've got to give a brief to all of my designers, including the sound designer. And I've got ideas for the visuals, and I've got ideas for all kinds of things around how this is going to work. I've got thoughts about the costumes. I've got my brief ready for everybody except the sound designer. And so I thought, all right, well, I have to give some thought to what is the sonic world of this play. And as I'm thinking about it, the cover art from Aerosmith's Permanent Vacation kept coming up in my mind. And I keep going, right, this is like
That's amazing.
Heavy rock band, right? And this is a Depression era, stop it. Right? And I just kept saying, stop it. I'm trying to think about something else right now. And finally, it kept coming up. I was just like, fine, I'll go listen to that album. Like I said to my brain, essentially, like, fine, I'll go listen to the stupid album. Maybe you'll just leave me alone if I listen to that album so that I can get back to the task at hand, which is coming up with a brief for my sound designer. And I'll be damned. Right, but the song Hangman's Journey comes on, and you just hear this porch swing. And then the sound of a slide national guitar and a harmonica playing a song, which, by the way, Aerosmith did not write. It is old as time.
Wow.
And it's about not lying on the tracks or lying on the tracks. And this is a play in which they talk a lot about getting creamed by the train on the tracks. Like, you better watch out, kind of creamed on the, by gum, right? Here I was, my conscious mind looking in the dark, and my intuition shone a light into that dark. It provided me with a response that I did not comprehend. I guarantee you, if I had gone to AI, I would have come up with a very dull, very pablum solution.
Very different.
And instead, I had two absolutely incredible musicians sitting under the trestle as if they were hobos for the entirety of the play, playing live music that was absolutely perfect.
See, that's what I'm talking about, Aaron. Like that, I love you sharing. That's a beautiful, beautiful story to share because it proves the point. It proves a point of like why we're having this discussion in the first place. Work from home, AI. What are we losing? What are we gaining? And all the things in between. That's exactly what we're saying. Like that would be missed. That would absolutely be missed from that. So like you have to remember as you move on, everybody that's watching today and listening today, remember as you move on that you have got to be responsible in how you do things. You have to look at it case by case basis. Don't be afraid to look at it case by case basis. Make it customizable to you. And I love what you said, Aaron. Just because we did it a way for a long time doesn't mean it's how we should keep doing it. It also doesn't mean that if it's not broke, don't fix it. I mean, if there is something working good, don't go just upset the apple cart for the sake of upsetting the apple cart. It just doesn't work that way either. So you just have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah. So whatever questions you have now about how to deal with work from home, how to deal with AI, how to deal with the way that they are the confluence of the two. Know that there is no one size fits all. It's going to take some real consideration about your circumstance. There's not necessarily a best practices here. There's a combination of best practices that are going to be affected by the cost benefit analysis that you're going to have to endure.
Yep.
I think all other things being equal, most teams are going to do better working in the office. That said, all things are not equal. There are lots of considerations that go into this. Like, are we going to have a harder time recruiting great talent? Yes, you are going to have a harder time recruiting great talent if you're working in the office and require that. Are we going to be able to come up with solutions as well if we're working remotely? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah.
There are so many variables
Mm-hmm.
that nobody's going to be able to give you a one size fits all answer.
I agree. I mean, it is like this. Like I said, it's very customizable, and it's how you look at what is going to serve you and your purposes. And I just hate this feeling where I've really heard this sentiment out there where people that have worked remotely and hybrid feel like it's a punishment to have to go back into work. And I think that that's really sad for a couple different reasons. I mean, one, I think that if you're feeling like it's a punishment, maybe you're in the wrong field, because you should be doing exactly what you would be doing at home as you would in the office. And the only difference supposed to be is just your logistics, right? So if that's the case, that means there's other factors making you hate it, whether it's getting in the car and driving that far, having to put your kid in daycare when you really don't want to and you're not ready to, when it's because maybe you're a single parent and you're the one that has to take them to school, drop them off, doctor's appointments, and it allows you to get your work done in a way that's not traditional, and you get it all done for your employer. But if you're forced to clock in and out, you can't do it that way. This is where leadership comes in. This is where know your people that you're hiring in the reason. Hire them for their talents. Work with them. You don't have to, even if you bring them in the office, do something like I used to say to my people all the time. I don't care what vacation you take. I don't care how much you take. I paid them for as much as they wanted to take within reason. You want to know why? Because if they got the job done, they got the job done. And 9 times out of 10, if a candidate needed a call at 10 o'clock at night, they took that call and they weren't clocking it. But if they needed to go to school and watch their kids play, I wanted them to go watch their kids play. It's all about how you lead. It's all about you lead and how you set those expectations in. That makes all the difference in the world.
I'll add to that because I can't improve upon it. I'll add to that we think of leadership often as I'll tell you what, and you do. And we've seen some CEOs on video calls acting very poorly, saying things like, if you're I don't even remember it. Like I was so appalled by some of the things that they've said, essentially lambasting their people. Any change that you make is a sales job.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And just like in sales, in leadership sales, where you're selling people on the new behavior that you want from them, people buy for their own reasons, not for yours. And so whatever change you're looking for, if you're wanting people to use AI more, if you're wanting them to use it differently, if you're wanting them to come back to the office, if you're deciding to give up your office and you want people to work from home, you have a sales job. And your reasons can't simply be business justification. Those are your reasons. If you want to bring your people along and have them offering discretionary effort and strengthening your relationship and having retention, then you're going to have to learn about them, because you also can't imagine their reasons. You can guess.
Yep, but you don't know.
And the thing is, we guess wrong. The salespeople who press what should be the buyer's reasons on the buyers don't do very well. So as a leader, you've got a sales job. People buy for their own reasons, not for yours.
I think you put that eloquently. And for anybody that's listening says, I could never do this anyway because I have a manufacturing plant or a logistics company, or, I have nurses that work with me or something like that. So that they feel like it's a moot point to talk about work from home and AI. maybe you think that for the moment, and I understand that, but you're associated with people that may have be challenged to working from home. You're around people that may be in a hybrid environment. And I don't want people to feel bitter about, because we all make our own choices. Like if I want to play basketball for a living, I'm going to travel a lot. If I'm really good at it, I know that the work I have to put in outside of a game, outside of a practice, right? And I know that, and I own that about my craft. So each one of us makes a decision of that. So we can't feel bad for each other for what path that we've chosen, but we can help each other along the way. And I think understanding, just like you said, Aaron, understanding what makes those people tick, the people that are working with you, and know that there's more to it. They have families. And no, I don't expect everybody here, and neither does Aaron, to sit, if you have 50 people that you're managing, to sit down and like know every single one's immediate need every 5 seconds. It's what Aaron said. It's setting the expectation in of what you expect, and learning. You do need to learn though about them, and you do need to know something about the people and the talent that they are offering you, because they're giving you their time, and then you're going to give back to them, because at the end you all want to grow together, and that's what creates a beautiful, beautiful growth environment for companies.
Sounds good to me. Jennifer, anything you'd like to say or offer? How can people get a hold of you?
Oh, thank you. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm Jennifer Sheets, SHEETS, like sheets of paper. And I'm also on Instagram at the Jennifer Sheets. But you can also get me on my email at jsheets@ceo.life. It's really easy, jsheets@ceo.life. And check out my radio show, Master the Workforce. It's on all podcasts, every platform. And it airs live and air nationwide every Sunday at 11 a.m.
And if you're looking for how do I make this sale to my people, if you are trying to figure out how do we come together, had a CEO say to me, we were walking on eggshells together, and now we are telling each other what we need to hear. So if you need to improve communication and trust so that you can be the most effective team that you can be, if you're looking to have people inspired to do the best work of their lives, I hope you'll look me up. I'm Aaron Schmuckler. I'm the only Aaron Schmuckler on LinkedIn. You can also find me at theyesworks.com, theyesworks.com. And I love talking with people about this stuff. I'm sure you can feel a little bit of my passion for these topics, and for making work great for people and making people great for work. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful,
Thank you, everyone.
afternoon. I don't know when you're listening to this. You might be with us live now. You may be watching later. Either way, I hope it's great.